Good evening, darlings and deviants. My name is Lucy and I'm just a little loony. You might have several questions upon seeing that title, such as, duh, of course you can, and every set has precons now, dum-dum, and why is this weird cartoon girl in my suggestions? These are all very excellent questions, so let me give you some context. This year, I underwent a challenge. I would take a box from every set, starting with Ravnica Remastered in January, then crack it open with you, my lovely audience, and build decks from it. Then, for each set that released this year, I would augment those decks, change them up, and see what we can make from only one box of each set this year. We opened a lot of super cool cards, from a retro border Cyclonic Rift to a full art Sire of 7 Deaths. I managed to build some sick decks with them, and I want to do something special with them. If you're itching to know what that is, there'll be a time code down in the doobly-doo. If you want to hear the story of how we got to those decks and the highlights of the openings, then keep on watching. Without further ado, let's start the show. Have you ever been bored of just cracking packs, but you don't really have people you can just sit around to draft with? Well, you could find 3 other people with boxes and put together a Boxmander event, a commander deck with just the contents of 1 box. But what if you want to keep it going? And what if you want to play with people who aren't doing this challenge? Well, that's where this comes in. I call it progmander, aka Progression Commander. You progress through the year and build commander decks. Anyway, Ravnica Remastered was an awesome set, but in case you didn't know, turns out the set was mostly designed for draft, so when you're building a deck, things get a bit weird. We opened some solid legendaries like Prime Speaker Zagana, Karlov of the Ghost Council, and a very, very, very pretty Savra that I have very normal feelings about. Get ready to hear that a bunch. WotC printed several pretty ladies this year. My initial plan was to make 1 deck and leave it at that, but between the different shocklands I pulled and the blessing that was pulling all 10 signets, and double Farseek, I figured it'd be safe to build 2 decks. So I put together a deck with Zagana and a deck with Karlov, those 2 being the 2 commanders that didn't share colors, and the Karlov one was not very good. It wasn't that good. This becomes a theme throughout the video and the year. I wish it wasn't. Zagana really ended up being Simic good stuff, with Cyclonic Rift, Quasi-Duplicate, Copy Enchantment, and Void Slime accompanying some evolved creatures. This was solid, but I had some pretty doo-doo cards in it as well. I had to resort to running Civic Saber and Voyager Staff to get to 100 cards without playing like way too many lands. But that's really why I loved this challenge. It enabled a lot of really interesting deck building, and I played with cards I never had before in a commander deck. And honestly, Voyager Staff plus Zagana was actually pretty fire. It was kinda like a poor woman's Essence Flux in a way. It was a super awesome start to the year. Next up, we stuck around in Ravnica for a bit with Murders at Karlov Manor. This set really killed it, and by killed it, I mean it kinda killed the hype over one of my favorite planes. It turns out people really like the guilds of Ravnica, and not so much of the, random detective clubs, but hey, one of them got me and my friends off the hook for random crimes we didn't commit, so, check out this video here if you want to know what that is about. This set was super cool though. Surveil lands augmented our dual lands package, a bunch of awesome legendary creatures like Azoni, Center of the Web, and Judith, Carnage Connoisseur, really made me think about what to build. In the end though, I stuck with Zagana because as it turns out, Simic good stuff is just kind of solid in Commander, and Judith as a sort of tokeny, spell-casty deck that let me play the retro border Master of Cruelties we opened way back in, but it was in Ravnica Remastered. The Simic nonsense still did a bit better though, as the memories of my Mizzix mastery that I got from Ravnica Remastered as well, getting negated, and it would have won me the game if it didn't, still stings to this day. Maybe. War never changes. But this set certainly changed the game. One interesting thing about the Progmander challenge is that you can only play with cards that you open, meaning you don't have access to staples like Command Tower, Soul Ring, and Arcane Signet, which this set gave to us. Well, Soul Ring and Command Tower. We didn't get to open a Arcane Signet or any of the fancy bobbleheads, unfortunately. What it did give us is another boost in land power level, introducing check lands, filter lands, battle lands, all the best lands, except the shock lands, but we already got some of those. It also gave us the 4 face commanders of the product: Dr. Madison Lee, Kaisar, the Wise Mothman, and Dogmeat, in addition to powerful cards like a Foil Guardian Project. It being foil makes it better, I swear. Branching Evolution, Hardened Scales, and the swath of token producers that we had from the last few sets, and a few more in here from the Caesar deck. We were set. I put together Caesar and Mothman since black was a color we could split pretty favorably between the two, and I opened the ultimatum for Caesar and nipped in Lottery. This card is not fair. Like, this card is crazy, and I don't see it nearly as often as I think I should. Play this card. It's cracked. However, this set does introduce a bit of a, well, we'll say commander creep. This was the first 3 color commanders that we had real access to without it being like a random chance. I really wanted the Niv Mizzet from Murders at Karlov Manor, but we didn't pull him. And with these 3 colored commanders, there really wasn't any reason to not play them until we got other 3 color options, especially getting all those cool lands. They're strong, they give us access to more colors. I think it'll make sense if we move on. Yeehaw! Outlaws of Thunder Junction did a lot going on and had a lot of cowboy hats. Like, a lot of them. One thing I was looking forward to was potentially opening one of the 3 color legendaries at Rare or Mythic. Ariette, Marchesa, Obeka, Any Flash, Riku, Kellen, Girid. We didn't get any of them. None at all. For a set with a ton of legendaries, we really didn't open too many of them at the Rare and Mythic level. We picked up Akul the Unrepentant and Selvala, which I tried building decks with, but as it turns out, having a 3rd color is just a bit too strong. However, Outlaws of Thunder Junction also gave us some excellent color fixing in the form of deserts. Between Map the Frontiers and Dance of the Tumbleweeds, as long as we had green in a deck, we could fix our colors extremely easily, as well as ramp even further ahead with a single copy of Arid Archway. The bonus sheet also boosted our power a ton, with cards like Force of Vigor, Pest Infestation, and Cruel Ultimatum. Man, Cruel Ultimatum is such a cool right, wait, we didn't open any commanders in Grixis colors. Well, Modern Horizons 3 was supposed to have like a couple of those, so I'm sure it'll have a few solid options for us, right? Right? Modern Horizons 3, a set where nothing ever went wrong and every card in it was perfectly balanced as things should be. I'm sure that there will be absolutely no avians that'll be adjacent to the Order 66 of Commander. Oh, hey Nadu, what's up? Bird Wizards aside, this set was weird for progmander. We opened a decent amount of fetch lands and the modal double-faced card lands, along with some solid cards like Hopeender Coatl and Sowing Mica Spawn, but our new legends were the Planeswalkers Tameo, Ajani, and Grist, which didn't really open up any new color combos and were better in decks than not. Tameo specifically is a really strong card, but she kind of doesn't synergize with anything that we have going on here. And despite being able to open up the cards from the Modern Horizons 3 commander set, the ones we got were Omo, who is super awesome as a commander, but only if you can really build around her, which we didn't have the resources for, or Koram, who kind of let us pick up the cycler of the Crozen Tusker we got from the list. Rest in peace, the list. You won't be missed. Let us cycle that for value and do a bit of thievery from our opponents, but it just didn't have the staying power that the Fallout commanders had, and with the solid white-black removal spells of Caesar or the Simic nonsense of the Mothman, it kind of just didn't fit too well. For a period of time, opening up Guide of Souls and Distinguished Conjurer made me think it was Karlov time again, but unfortunately it was not. Some other picks were Phyrexian Tower, which was a sick pickup, so were the Flares of Denial, Malice, and Fortitude. We also got a special guest Art of Grief. No, I didn't play it. No, I didn't sell it before it got banned. Yes, I am very sad. In addition, the massive energy sub-theme let me put Dr. Madison Lee together, and it was pretty functional. However, functional doesn't always mean good. We could get a lot of energy and spin our wheels a bunch, but it's not super easy to win with an energy strategy without some massive payoff. And our artifacts weren't quite there. We did pick up some solid artifacts from the big score in Outlaws of Thunder Junction and a Kappa Cannoneer. It just was like just shy. Overall, Modern Horizons 3 was another spike in power level for these decks, and was around the time we started removing some of the last bits of draft chaff. Yes, there were still some less than ideal cards, but now it's less, having just a lack of cards in your pool, and more so where you're playing cards from the last year of Magic as opposed to the last 30 years of Magic, I'll be real, I wasn't super excited for Assassin's Creed, but oddly enough, it came in super clutch in a lot of ways. Reprints like Fatal Push, Path to Exile, Sword of Light and Shadow definitely gave our decks a boost. However, despite blue and black being peak assassin colors, our best legendary ended up being Javi the Allfather. We have plenty of historic and legendary cards, and Naya has some of our best ramp spells, meaning we can play some massive creatures. We also pulled the 5-color Ezio, but with a stunning lack of assassins that work well with what we have going overall, and our 5-color stuff kind of just being 5-color good stuff, and Ezio not really helping with that. In this day and age of Commander, where you want your Commander to do something that synergizes with your deck, rather than just be something that enables your colors, it was a little rough. If we had a few more assassins or some synergy pieces, maybe, but The same was true for Edward Kenway, an amazing commander that works well with a lot of vehicles that we picked up, but our quality in cards was a bit too low. We didn't have quite enough vehicles, not quite enough assassins, and pirates weren't in the set. We also only pulled Cassandra and not her spear. Dreams were crushed. All in all, Assassin's Creed was fine for our purposes. I wasn't a huge fan of the set overall, and I don't really like Beyond boosters, whatever you call them, Aftermath Beyond, I don't like them, but we weren't here to skip out on any sets of the year. We were here to open up a box of every set, and we did so with Assassin's Creed, and it wasn't as bad as expected. Monetarily wise, it was awful though, these were overpriced. Bloomborough, in my loony line of thought, was tied with Foundations for the best set of this year. It was an excellent limited environment, an awesome theme, and had some really strong cards. For legendaries, we picked up Helga, Skittish Seer, and Wart, with Helga being a super powerful Bant ramp commander and Wart being Rats.deck. Sadly, we did not open enough rats to make him work. Warren Warrior was obviously a standout, getting extra bunnies or buffs and really putting Caesar back on the map. But with the bats and their synergies, I tried Karlov again, to no avail. It felt so close, we just needed a little bit more. We did pull one of the super awesome special guest cards, and it was a doozy. Sword of Fire and Ice. Sadly, however, without any super efficient equipment synergies, the sword was only lukewarm. Another commander we picked up was Balin the Haymaker, and he joined the 6 or so 3-color commanders that we had that were super solid options. We had tons of ways to make tokens, tons of ways to buff them up. It became a bit of a rotation personally, swapping between Balin, Helga, the Fallout commanders. It was really hard to choose. One of the super awesome parts of Bloomborough was kind of also its weakness for this challenge, the synergies with other members of the types. You really wanted to have a mice deck, a rat deck, a frog deck, and I just didn't have the volume to really use most of the cards to their max potential. Amazing set, but it was a little hit or miss for our purposes for this challenge. The second plane of horror brought us some amazing cards for our decks. From Nowhere to Run, Withering Torment, and a good number of the Verges, we had plenty of new options with this set, picking up a whole room of new cards that made me rethink deck building, but at the end of the day, returned to Caesar and the Mothman. Between multiple copies of Withering Torment, a really strong suite of reanimation spells like Live to Die, that augmented what we already had going for these decks. However, near the approach of Foundations, I exchanged the black of the Mothman for the white of Helga, and I think it went a little bit better. Helga was a ramp piece in the command zone, along with a card draw that let us get to play a whole host of creatures from across all of our pools. I tried Karlov again, because some of the life gain cards, and Sheltered by Ghosts is a really solid, amazing option for removal, but it didn't work out too well. We did open a Leyline of Hope though, so maybe, just maybe, with one more set. Foundations. The final frontier. Or, well, at least the last set for this year. A new beginning for Magic and a fantastic finale to our challenge. We picked up a few new legendaries like the Red Black Alesha, for instance, but most of the others were single color legends, which weren't quite good enough with all the multicolored cards and lands we opened. Again, just kind of unfortunate. We didn't open Progenitus. I would have played it if we opened it. I'm sorry. Foundations also had a life gain synergy theme, and I thought maybe, just maybe, Karlov might be good enough this time, and I think he ended up being playable? The problem lied with him being just a bit under-supported with our pools this year. Not enough Soul Sisters, not enough of the big splashy life gain cards, we're just barely missing the power level and just enough instances of life gain to make him work. Oddly enough, the rares and mythics that we picked up weren't amazing. They were super solid, don't get me wrong, but mostly they were side grades to what we already have. Okay, well, we did pick up the Achroma's Memorial Special Guest, and that card is kind of nuts. And a Full Art Sire of 7 Deaths, which is incredibly sick. And High Fate Trickster, which is a super solid flash enabler, but besides that, the uncommons were where it was at. Stroke of Midnight, Garrick's Uprising, Tatiova Benthic Druid, they were all solid staples for these colors that I was really happy to pick up. But since it's the last set, it was time to lock in. The final deck lists will be in the description if you want to check them out, with the 2 commanders being Javi the Allfather and the Wise Mothman. Javi is a classic Naya deck, with large legendary creatures augmented with solid ramp and some solid artifacts like that Achroma's Memorial to boot. The Mothman deck makes heavy use of the green and black counter synergies that we saw in Modern Horizons 3, along with Branching Evolution and Hardened Scales, and some newcomer cards from Foundations like Sequent Sky Mage and Sylvan Scavenging, and this makes this deck amazing and a really scary deck to contend with. So that's it. These are the final decks I landed with, and honestly, they're not too bad. They've done a lot of work at my local tables at about mid power levels, and if you've noticed, I have played a couple of these on stream. There's a lot of gas here, and I think they're pretty solid for what's effectively a roguelike run of Magic decks. But like every run in whatever roguelike is popular this season, I think it's Balatro right now. All things must come to an end. But I think I'd like to do this again next year. It was a super fun challenge, and I'm super excited for the sets coming up in 2025. Next year, I think I'd want to do collector's boosters to maybe make the openings a little bit spicier and more interesting for you guys to watch. I have a plan in mind if the initial opening in Innistrad Remastered doesn't go too well, so stay tuned for that. Thinking of next year naturally makes me think of this year, and honestly, I'll probably need to make a whole video about that closer to the end of the year. So much has happened, some bad, some very bad, but some good and some super good. This was truly the year of all time. But a lot of the good that came from this year came from you guys, my lovely audience, and I want to give back a bit. So I'm gonna give away one of these decks. I'll be running this until December 14th, mostly so that I can get it shipped and hopefully get it to you before Christmas. No promises there. I don't know how, y'all's postal system works. The interplanar postal system is a little funky too, so I don't know how it's going to get there, but I'll try. So what exactly am I giving away? Well, you get your choice of the decks on offer in the description. Like I said, I'll be posting the 2 decks that I used at the end of the year here, along with the list for the Karlov and Madison Lee decks, in case those interest you a little bit more. I don't want to just make decks from like a custom pool, but I think those are the 4 decks that would call to the most people, and I think those would be the most interesting ones. I'll also be including a new set of sleeves and a new deck box. I don't think you guys would want to use the ones I've been using all year. Specifically, I'll be doing a Gamegenic Sidekick Pro and a set of Dragon Shield's 25th anniversary sleeves. I'm not sponsored by either of these, I just think they're really solid products. You can keep it all as is or take the cards and put them in other decks. Same thing with the deck box and sleeves. Once you win them, they're yours to do whatever you want with them. Eat them, sleep with them, whatever you want. I'm not your mom. I'll even sign as many of the cards as you want, if that's something you'd be into. So, how do you enter? Just comment on this video with the word progmander somewhere in said comment so that I can find it. That is PROGMANDER, and say which deck you'd want, along with any other thoughts that you have. I thought this was a really cool thing to do, and I want to know what you think about it. I'm really excited to get to share a piece of this with somebody out there. Just remember you have until December 14th of 2024 to get your comment in. I know time is a flat circle and travels differently in the Blind Eternities. Did you know that Eldrazi can just slurp up time like noodles? It's crazy! But make sure you're in. Also, I hope this goes without saying, but only 1 entry per person. If you try and enter twice, you'll be disqualified and I will be breaking your shins with a giant rubber mallet. Do not test me. That's all for now, folks. Progmander was a super cool challenge, and I hope you enjoyed hearing about my journey throughout the year. Hopefully I stay more on top of it next year and make more videos per set, and it can be a cool series. Wouldn't that be awesome? Anyway, thank you all so very much for watching, and until next time, au revoir!